Have you ever left a conversation feeling completely drained, replaying every word in your head, wondering, wait, was this actually my fault? That heavy guilt, that confusion, that strange feeling like your mind is being twisted against you? Yeah, that's not normal. That's manipulation. And the terrifying part, the most manipulative people rarely look toxic at first. They look caring, charming, supportive, until suddenly you're apologizing for things you didn't even do. See, manipulators don't fear people who yell. They don't fear anger. They don't fear drama. They fear something much more dangerous. People who stay calm enough to ask the right questions. Because the moment the right question enters the conversation, their mask starts slipping. Today, I'm exposing 3 powerful questions manipulative people absolutely hate being asked. Questions so effective, they can instantly reveal hidden control, emotional games, and fake intentions. And trust me, once you learn these questions, you'll never see toxic people the same way again. Look, manipulation is everywhere. It's not just in toxic relationships or dramatic situations you see online. Sometimes it's hidden inside normal conversations with people you trust the most, friends, partners, family members, coworkers, even people who constantly say, "I'm only trying to help you." And that's what makes manipulation so dangerous. Most manipulators don't look evil. They don't walk around acting like villains. They look confident, charming, funny, supportive. But behind the smiles, behind the fake concern, they slowly control your emotions without you even realizing it. One minute you feel confident, the next minute you're questioning your own memory, your decisions, even your worth. And by the time you notice what's happening, they've already taken control of the conversation, the emotions, and sometimes even your peace of mind. In this video, we're exposing 3 powerful questions manipulative people absolutely hate being asked. Because these questions destroy confusion, expose hidden intentions, and completely shift the power back to you. And trust me, the third question, that one hits so hard, most manipulators won't even know how to respond. So, stay till the end, because what you're about to hear might completely change the way you deal with people forever. You know what manipulative people are secretly masters at? Making you question yourself, not by screaming, not by obvious lies, but by slowly bending reality until you stop trusting your own mind. They twist your words, rewrite old conversations, act innocent when they're guilty, and somehow every problem magically becomes your fault. Maybe you've lived through this before. You bring up something that hurt you calmly, respectfully, and suddenly they start acting attacked. Now you're defending yourself instead of discussing the actual issue. A few minutes later, you're apologizing, even though deep down you know you did nothing wrong. That's the invisible trap. And the scary part is, it happens so gradually, you barely notice it. Manipulators don't control people with logic. They control emotions, confusion, guilt, self-doubt. Because a confused person is easier to control than a confident one. That's why most people lose against manipulators. They react emotionally instead of strategically. But the moment you stop reacting and start asking the right questions, the entire game begins to fall apart. Question number 1, and trust me, this one is powerful. Can you explain exactly what you mean? Sounds simple, right? But manipulative people absolutely hate this question. Why? Because manipulation only works when things stay vague, emotional, and confusing. Think about it. Someone suddenly says, "You're so selfish." Most people instantly react emotionally. What? How am I selfish? And just like that, the manipulator takes control of the conversation. Now you are emotional. You are defending yourself, and they stay in power. But imagine doing something different. Imagine staying calm, looking them in the eye, and quietly asking, "Can you explain exactly what you mean?" That's when everything changes, because now they're forced to give specifics instead of throwing emotional accusations. Manipulators love dramatic statements like, "You never care. You always ruin everything. Everyone thinks this about you." But the second you ask for proof, examples, or clarity, their story starts falling apart. And watch carefully what happens next. They may suddenly get angry, change the subject, mock you, or say, "Forget it, you're too sensitive." Why? Because your calm question just forced them into accountability. And accountability destroys manipulation. But wait, have you ever noticed this? The calmer you stay, the more frustrated they become. That's not random. Toxic people lose power when emotions stop controlling the conversation. Healthy people communicate. Manipulators react. One explains with maturity. The other explodes when they can't control you anymore. And that difference, it reveals everything. Question number 2. And this one? This one hits manipulators right in the ego. Why is this only a problem when it affects you? Whew, dangerous question. Because manipulative people survive on double standards. They can ignore your messages for hours, maybe days. But if you reply late once, suddenly you don't care. They can disrespect your feelings, talk over you, dismiss your pain. But the second you defend yourself, now you're too sensitive or rude. See the pattern? The rules magically change depending on who benefits. And one day, a guy named Arjun finally noticed this with one of his closest friends. Whenever Arjun was struggling emotionally, his friend vanished. No calls, no support, nothing. But whenever the friend had problems, he demanded instant attention and endless sympathy. One day, Arjun calmly asked, "Why is this only important when it affects you?" And suddenly, silence, because manipulators hate mirrors. They hate being confronted with their own behavior. And after questions like this, watch carefully. They may get defensive, act offended, bring up your past mistakes, or try to guilt trip you instantly. Why? Because the moment manipulation stops working, chaos begins. Here's something most people never realize until it's too late. Manipulative people rarely fight with logic. They fight with emotions. Because the moment emotions explode, clear thinking disappears. Have you ever noticed how some conversations suddenly become dramatic out of nowhere? 1 second, it's a simple discussion. The next second, there's yelling, crying, guilt tripping, silent treatment, victim acting. And suddenly, you're emotionally overwhelmed and mentally exhausted. That's not random. That's an emotional smokescreen. Manipulators create chaos on purpose because confused people are easier to control. When you're emotionally drained, you stop asking questions. You stop noticing contradictions. You just want the conflict to end. And that is where manipulators gain power. But this is exactly why the third question is so dangerous, because it cuts straight through the emotional fog. But before I reveal it, remember this. The goal is not to win arguments. The real goal is protecting your peace. Question number 3, and this is the one manipulators fear the most. What would happen if I said no? Simple words, but incredibly powerful, because manipulation survives on one thing: your compliance. Manipulators expect you to feel guilty, fear disappointing people, avoid conflict at any cost. But the moment you calmly ask, "What would happen if I said no?" their real intentions start showing instantly. Watch carefully. A healthy person respects boundaries. They may feel disappointed, but they respect your choice. A manipulative person, they panic. Suddenly they pressure you harder, guilt trip you, act hurt, threaten distance, or make you feel selfish for protecting yourself because they were never truly asking. They were controlling. And honestly, some people only love you when you obey them. That truth hurts, but it also sets you free. Quick question. Have you ever said yes while your heart was desperately screaming no? Yeah, that's how manipulation usually begins. Not with force, with guilt. One of the biggest mistakes good people make is believing this. If I just explain myself better, they'll finally understand me. But here's the painful truth. Manipulators usually already understand. They're not confused. They're testing your limits. They want to see how much guilt, pressure, and emotional exhaustion you're willing to tolerate before giving in. That's why over-explaining often makes things worse. Because manipulators collect emotional information like ammunition, your insecurities, your fears, your weaknesses, your need to be understood. They store it quietly and use it later during arguments, guilt trips, or emotional attacks. That's why confident silence is so powerful. You do not need to explain every boundary. You do not need permission to protect your peace. And listen carefully. The moment manipulators realize they can no longer control your emotions, many of them slowly disappear on their own. Why? Because control was the real connection all along. Not love, not loyalty, not friendship, control. Here's the truth nobody talks about. Manipulative people don't fear loud voices. They don't fear anger. And they definitely don't fear emotional reactions. What they truly fear is awareness. Because the moment you become emotionally aware, everything changes. The moment you stop reacting impulsively, stop defending yourself endlessly, and start asking calm, direct questions, their entire game begins falling apart. Why? Because manipulation survives in confusion, guilt, and emotional darkness. But questions bring light, clarity, truth, and once you finally recognize the pattern, you can never unsee it again. Suddenly, the guilt trips become obvious. The fake victim act becomes obvious. The emotional control becomes obvious. And that is real power. Not changing manipulators, not winning every argument, but finally seeing people clearly without emotional fog controlling your mind anymore. Because awareness doesn't just expose manipulation, it frees you from it. So let's remember the 3 questions manipulative people absolutely hate. Can you explain exactly what you mean? Why is this only a problem when it affects you? And what would happen if I said no? Simple questions, but incredibly powerful. Because these questions force something manipulators try desperately to avoid: clarity, accountability, and truth. And trust me, healthy people won't be threatened by these questions. The right people in your life will respect your boundaries, explain themselves calmly, and communicate honestly. Only manipulators become uncomfortable when control starts slipping away. So, from today forward, stop shrinking yourself just to keep toxic people comfortable. Stop apologizing for protecting your peace. Stop feeling guilty for saying no. And most importantly, start trusting your instincts again. Because deep down, your intuition usually notices manipulation long before your mind is finally ready to accept it. Sometimes your heart sees the truth before your emotions are brave enough to admit it. If this video opened your eyes even a little, do me one favor right now. Hit that like button, because more people need to hear this than you realize. And subscribe for more psychology and self-growth videos that don't just entertain you, but completely change the way you understand people, emotions, and toxic behavior. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 3 questions hit the hardest? Which one exposed something in your life instantly? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read them all, and honestly, if there's someone in your life who constantly feels emotionally controlled, manipulated, or mentally exhausted, send them this video. This could be the moment that finally helps them see the truth clearly. Because sometimes one realization can change everything. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay aware, trust your instincts, and protect your peace at all costs.